Today I'm joined by Troy Barratt. Troy is the CEO of BAMUK Group, which is a holding company for multiple companies, generally in the core markets of construction, ventilation, hard landscaping, light infrastructure, and street furniture. So, hi Troy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, Simon. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So Troy, you're involved in a number of different businesses. You've got contracts engineering and Furnitubes International, and I think this year we'll get into you've bought a powder coating company as well. So just tell us a bit more about your businesses.
Sure. So we kind of think about it as two key areas. We have the manufacturing service businesses, which are contracts engineering and custom. And with custom's a new acquisition, so I'll talk about that a bit later. But at contracts, it's our biggest company that we own, and it's the one we bought first. So contracts engineering, what makes us kind of unique is that we focus exclusively on regional or global OEMs, so original equipment manufacturers, like your big companies that sell a big product, or your tier ones. Easiest way to think about it is Airbus is an OEM and Rolls-Royce is a tier one selling engines to Boeing. And we talk to companies that have factories in the UK, and we talk to them about their supply chain integration needs. So think about that, Simon, is when do you need your product? How often? How is it prepared and packed? What sort of fixed contracts do you need in terms of pricing? And and then the quality assurance side is welding certificates, material certs, and the like. These things called PPAPs, which you don't really need to worry about, but sort of the upfront quality checks. And we supply into them. And what we actually do is we process steel and aluminum. So we buy it in from mills or from stockists, and then we laser cut it, punch it, fold it, robotically weld it, manually weld it, coated weld it, prep it all up, and then out comes a sub-assembly that could be for lifting equipment, could be for a defense business, could be for street furniture. You mentioned quite a lot of street furniture and infrastructure. We have two clients that do that, which gives me a segue into our third business. We own Furnitubes, and most all of Furnitubes manufacturing goes through contracts.
Okay.
And so Furnitubes is a fantastic business we bought just before COVID. So it's great business, tough time to buy a business that sells into construction. But you kind of learn a lot through that process. And Furnitubes designs, sells, and markets branded street furniture product ranges. What makes us unique is we sit in this space in the market where we have quality design driven products that last for 15, 20 years in the public realm. And most of them are modular. But for us, it's a standard product. So you get the standard product pricing. It's easier to design, it's easier to fulfill. So we don't do the bespoke stuff. And we don't do the kind of really low end stuff that's mostly imported from the Far East. And so things like the strand that's been pedestrianized is our work. We just shipped a bunch of stuff to America quite regularly. We just shipped some of our products, our union range, to Germany. So by having this kind of niche of high quality branded products that you can configure online and design into different shapes and configurations, we've got a really nice niche. And Furnitubes is mostly, it's about 2/3 public, 1/3 private, although the private's growing faster than the public. And it's mostly UK, but we're expanding into Europe and America. So that business is quite exciting. And then very briefly, the coatings business was this great long-term supplier to both businesses. Effectively, once the steel or aluminum is done being processed, it's often gets a coat. You want it to look gray, black, green, and you coat it with polyester or nylon. So we bought a supplier so that we could integrate that and have control over that key part of our supply chain. And so far, so good.
Brilliant. Thank you. Look, thank you for explaining that. Like some really interesting sort of businesses there as well that you're involved in. And look, let's go back to sort of like the start a little bit on this, Troy, because
Yeah.
am I am I right in saying that actually all of those businesses you've acquired rather than setting them up from day one? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I guess in the jargon of the industry, you'd say I'm an entrepreneur through acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
which is
We buy
quite
established businesses.
it's quite interesting because a lot of business owners that I speak to, they may have started at their own business and then made acquisitions. So your background is mergers and acquisitions. I think you were worked up in the
Yeah.
sort of etc. in mergers and acquisitions. So what led you from advising and being involved in mergers and acquisitions to actually doing it and doing it for yourself?
Well, it's an, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to be brief on it, Simon. So, I had no idea what I wanted to do in university. I liked economics. I majored in business, and fortunately, I grew up in Indiana, and Indiana happens to have one of the best business schools in America. Public, it's a public school, public in terms of state. You'd say state school here, but it's just a state university. Um, and I really focused on my academics in college. And a lot of because it's such a good school, a lot of good companies come through. And I started hearing about this thing called investment banking. I started hearing how much you get paid. To be honest, I was like, that's quite motivating. I had student loans, and I wanted a high-paying job, and it sounded exciting. I started looking into it, and I'll tell you, the first time I'd ever been to New York City was for a final round interview at a bank, where they do these things called Super Saturdays, where they bring in all these kids and interview the heck out of us, for like 6 or 8 hours on a Saturday, and then they decide if they're going to hire you or not. And I did well, and I got a job. So there I was moving to New York City, and I got into the mergers and acquisitions group at the bank I worked for, which is quite a good group. Learning how to buy and sell companies and just kind of the technical dynamics and kind of get into the strategy as well. So I thought it was pretty exciting. And really, I stayed in banking, corporate development, and private equity for the next almost 15 years, through a number of different companies. And what I found over that time, Simon, is I really enjoyed more companies that made things than companies that were just a service. I understood them better. Something kind of drew me to it for whatever reason. You kind of make a choice. Do I like services or do I like, manufacturing and engineering? And I just really liked engineering. I remember at this private equity fund I was at, a fantastic fund. We owned some shipyards down in the south of the U.S., down in Alabama and Florida. I remember walking around the shipyards. And I just loved it. These big machines cutting steel and these huge dry docks, cleaning up rigs and doing all this work. And I thought, this is cool stuff. I love it. So that was kind of what led me to say manufacturing and, products, little physical products. And then really we moved to London in 2010. My wife is British, so we wanted to move over here and have our family settled here. And but up until banking, I always had this itch that I would do something myself. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I kind of had a breaking point where I could say, either I'm going to stay in banking or I'm actually going to do it. And, with amazing support from my wife, I said, let's do it. And I started looking for companies to buy. And that's kind of the start of BAMUK Group. I just incorporated BAMUK Group, took some savings and said, let's find some engineering businesses. And there's some strategy behind that. Why engineering, why manufacturing, why contract manufacturing. But, I kind of put all that together. And I started looking at businesses. I started signing non-disclosures and getting P&Ls and balance sheets and, figuring out what looked interesting. And I think I looked at about 18 businesses and settled on contracts.
Okay. So, okay, brilliant. Yeah, you had that background, thought you'd do it for yourself, which is, great
Yeah.
to hear. And actually, firstly, let's ask you a quick question. What be your top tips when making an acquisition? Let's say if you had to pick one thing to say, if somebody was looking at acquiring a company, what's the top tip that you'd give them, Troy?
Oh, geez. I mean, there's a few.
Let's go for your top. Let's say top.
I'll go through two. From a very high level, go into it humble and open-minded. No matter how many times you do it, every deal is different. And two, expect that something's going to come out of the woodwork after you buy the business.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And that point is to say, be sharp on your price and make sure you've, particularly for smaller businesses, probably the same for big. But when you're buying smaller businesses, it's sort of a different deal structure. Just know that there could be a challenge. You could find out some people leave, you lose a big customer. There's some liabilities you weren't aware of. So just be aware that something will come out of the woodwork. So plan accordingly. Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you for
And for
sharing
us,
that.
every time we've done something, something's come out of the woodwork. There's always something.
So, well, let's move on to that a little bit because obviously, yeah, like you came into this with experience of mergers and acquisitions, etc. Um, but then you moved into a slightly different sort of field of, well, I've now made the acquisition. I now need to run the business.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that? How did you find that transition between, okay, I've now acquired the business, right? Now we've got to run it and make it successful and grow it and whatever your plans were for it.
Yeah, I gotta say, Simon, that's the hardest bit for me. It was learning how to run the business. As I joked, what do I do at Wednesday afternoons? What do my Monday mornings look like now that I'm the MD? Um, how do I run the business? How do I think about the team? And I'd say two things on that. Um, Particularly if you're coming from a banking or sort of management consulting or private equity background, when you buy a business, you have to appreciate there's a much bigger mix of personality types,
Uh-huh.
right? If you're working with bankers, everyone's kind of type A and driving hard, and everyone's like, I want to progress, I want to do this, I work really hard, I'll stay as late as possible. When you buy a business, there's a lot of great people, but most of them, are working. But when they leave, they want to leave and go do their hobby, go on runs, go see their kids. So I had to get used to a lot less kind of hardcore drive, right? I mean, I came in like, let's do this, let's go, I got all these ideas, let's do this and do that and remarket the way we sell this and set this product up and da 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 da. So that was kind of different. And then I think the part that's really important is just really think about the tempo you want to set in terms of, I like the approach of scaling up, whether using kind of Rockefeller habits or EOS,
Love that. Yeah.
something along the lines of, your Mondays are kind of meeting heavy. You're focusing on alignment with the team, good communication, running through the business, any stucks. And then for the rest of the week, you're kind of touching base on things, but everyone stays aligned. It's certainly if you're buying a business with the idea of scaling it, that's critical. Getting the alignment right.
Great. Look, great tips. And I think focus on people there and the different types of people because you're absolutely right. Everybody's different. One of the things that I do a lot of my clients is disc profiling. It's different types of
Yeah. Disc is a great profile. Yeah.
yeah. But I remember they say there's the golden rule that is treat other people as you like to be treated yourself. But then they say there's the platinum rule, and the platinum rule is treat other people as they want to be treated. Because why would we treat people
Yes.
the same?
There's a lot of great. Yeah.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a lot of great people on the team that will happily work, and yeah.
I think that platinum.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of great people on the management team that work. They're happy to, give it their all when they're there. It's like, they give 100% of their brain, but they don't want to do 12-hour days.
Yeah, exactly.
So I totally get why, and I don't want to ask them to. So that was different. Yeah, but yeah, I like the platinum rule. I've heard that, and it's totally true. Treat people as they want to be treated.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of things there, but what would you say your biggest challenge has been as a business owner? What would you say that the biggest challenge has been?
Well, the biggest specific challenge was about 18 months after owning the business. We had some good growth. Mm-hmm. But what I realized was, in particular, one of the managers just wasn't the right person. Okay. He's kind of undermining me at times, kind of getting increasingly difficult. His view on where the business should go is very different from where I wanted to take the business. And as we kind of worked through that, we were just kind of losing that alignment. And he ended up leaving, and then another manager left immediately afterward, and went to a competitor and started trying to hire people and take our clients. So that specifically was high stress. As I say to people, you think about being an entrepreneur, think about it this way: like I've had high pressure jobs, but I could always sleep at night. Yeah. When that happened, I had some sleepless nights. So there's that sort of added level of stress. And thankfully, it all worked out in the end. I wish the guys the best now, and our company's grown, probably 2 or 3x since then. So it happened. I learned from it, but I gotta say at the time, Simon, I was pretty stressed out.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, was there anything sort of specifically that you did at that time then to overcome that, to sort of to deal with that stress and go, look, okay, right, this is the action I need to take, or this is what I want to do? Is there anything that specifically stands out that you did at that time to overcome that?
Well, I spent a lot of time talking with the existing team.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, look, guys, this has happened. It's not going to ruin the business. It is tough. It's unfortunate, particularly the way one of the ex-managers was trying to hire away people and started calling clients and stuff because he went to sort of a competitor. But I said, look, we'll get through it. Let's do this together. We're a great team, and let's persevere. And I think the communication internally was tough. You got to look at the problem. You got to acknowledge it. I think I was very important that everyone saw that I knew that it was a problem. They could see that it did stress me out, but I said, look, we'll get through it. This isn't the end of the world. And now the folks that are still with the business see it, and the business is doing better, and they've progressed, and they go, yeah, we made it through. It's fine. So it's you're going to have some bumps. You don't know where they're going to come from, but it was a bump, and we did all right, and we just probably brought some of the team closer together.
Yeah, that's what was going through my mind when you sort of said that about bringing everyone together. It's sort of like that rallying the troops, isn't it? Right, okay, let's all come together. As they say, sharing the problem. Okay, because if when everybody's involved, then you get everybody's ideas of right, well, we should do this and we should take this action or whatever it may be. So those ideas, everybody feels part of it. Everybody feels belonging. Right, okay, we're going to do this, and you become stronger. So yeah, I like that. Great bit of advice there. So what?
And the other thing is, sorry, just to add to that, Simon, it was really important. I talked to all of our clients.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, because they said, "Oh, such and such is left. What does that mean?" And that was really important. And I was just very open. They're gone. Here's what we're doing in terms of hiring or promoting internally. We'll do everything to look after you. Here's my mobile number. If you need anything, call me. I'm going to be personally much more involved for a while to make sure that you get your product on time and it's right. And I think that helped us as well. So sort of, I call it communication broadly. That kind of stuff happens, Simon. People start whispering, and if you're not careful and you let other people kind of guess, these rumors get crazy. And you just want to squash the rumor mill with the truth. That's really important.
I think that reminds me of a generalized sort of principle. I use when I'm coaching people. I use generalized principles, and what that reminds me of is something I call the roadway of life. And as we're going through our life or our business, we get these like little taps on the shoulders, just slight warning signs about that we should be doing something or stop doing things. And I think they're like the cat size on a road, or the rumble strips that you get a road. When you're veering off your
of course,
lane, you get the rumble strips or the cat size, and that's the tap on the shoulder. But the thing is, if you avoid those taps on the shoulders or the rumble strips, you might hit the barrier, and it's more painful.
Yeah.
And if you still ignore it and you go through the barrier, then you're likely to hit an oncoming truck. And it's going to be even more painful. So, what resonated with me, what you sort of said there, is you dealt with it when you started to get those like taps on the shoulders, or even before you got the taps on the shoulders. Right, let's contact our clients. Let's deal with it early rather than waiting until it becomes a big problem. So yeah, brilliant. I love that, Troy. Thank you for sharing it. So what would you say your biggest learning has been since you've been in business, Troy?
I mean, I would say I really enjoy working with people, and I've just really come around to kind of really enjoy seeing people develop and grow and seeing how different some people are. So we've done disc profiles. Um, we like a lot. We do insights as well, the 4 colors.
Yeah.
And that's really unlocked a lot of great discussions within the management team and for me, because, I was definitely golden rule, treat people as I like to be treated. But I'm quite type A, and when you're my first job, I worked as many hours as they needed. So it became kind of that's how I think about work sometimes. Um, and but just realizing, there's a great mix of people out there that have lots of different interests, lots of different motivations and drivers. Um, and when you kind of mix people together with different kind of drivers and different viewpoints and different ways of just looking at things, you really get great outcomes. And it's not about trying to get people to work extra time. It's about trying to get the right team and just having really, really kind of open, professional, call it, discussions about what is the right answer. How are we going to do this? We have such a mix of people. We're quite heavy on analytics because it's engineering. So we kind of joke. We got to be careful that we don't want everyone to be, as they say, blue for insights, because we just get a little bit too analytical. Show me the data. So that's just really great having a mix of people with totally different viewpoints. And I've come to enjoy it almost like, just like the variety. I really like the variety, and I like how someone who looks at things very different than me comes up with such an interesting idea or such a good problem or solution. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. What a great way of thinking about it. So I think that's been really a great learning and just something I've just enjoyed. I say I didn't see this coming, but boy, do I like it.
So that's great to.
And then I guess learning wise,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'd say, learning wise, it's just, the ins and outs of a business. And, I would say from I guess a word of wisdom, no matter what you do, a big chunk of the success of your business will be driven by whatever macro trend is going on in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are in combustion engine supply chains, you are in a declining industry.
Uh-huh.
No matter how good you are, that's just the reality. And if you are in electric vehicle supply chain, you should expect growth.
Yeah.
And you're in the right industry, and as they say, the trend is your friend, or there's wind in your sails. So I'd say it was really important for me early on to think about that and to say, are we buying something that's going in the right direction? So my bet, particularly for the manufacturing services, is that the UK will see a green reindustrialization.
Yeah.
We will bring manufacturing back for a number of reasons. Manufacturing will be a growth industry again, and so we'll be a part of that. And if it doesn't happen, I've chosen wrong, and there's kind of nothing I can do about it, right? If the industry's not growing, it's not growing. Yeah, if it is growing and picks up, fantastic. So I think anyone who's thinking about being an entrepreneur, who wants to kind of scale up, you really got to think about, am I going into an industry with the right trends?
And I think that's great, and I think there's two things there, isn't there? There's going into the industry with the right trends, but actually there's also then how you run your business within that industry. Because I've seen businesses that have been in a growing market fail because of the way that
absolutely
approached it, run the business. So so I agree with you. You can make sure you do your research, pick the right markets, the growth markets, the ones that are the future, etc. And then make sure you run your business in a way that takes the best opportunities in that market. And I liked what you said about people there as well, Troy. People that are the fundamental of any and every business. Even businesses that are systemized and automated, we still need people to run those things and to do the things. So people underpin every business. So look, there's one question.
Absolutely, the right team matters so much.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one question I'd like to ask all the people that are kind enough to join me, and that is, If you could go back and speak to an 18-year-old you, what's the best advice that you would give yourself?
Ooh, um, I've been asked this before, and I always find it kind of challenging, right? Because you kind of go, what is that really good nugget? But I would say, like, if I was speaking to young people going into whatever industry they went into, I would say, at 18, you should focus a lot more on learning as much as possible. Try to find that good job and just say yes to everything. Yeah, I'll stay back. Yeah, I'll finish that. I'll take on the extra work. And don't get too focused on money too early. I mean, if you got a high paying job, that's great. But it'll come later. So really at 18 to kind of in your 20s, you just want to learn as much as possible and be as capable as possible. And if and I think that will treat anyone well, right? Because the more you learn, the more you can understand things, the faster you grow. And if you're really serious about being an entrepreneur or about excelling, basically your business life has to kind of be a hobby. And by that, I mean, you just have to kind of put time into it outside of your normal, say, contracted hours, whether it's staying late or when you're on a walk by yourself on a Saturday, really thinking through a business problem. And I just think that that's important. And people should embrace that as, hey, I really want to buy a business when I'm 30. Well, I would say, well, you better work really hard now to learn as much as possible. Or you want to be an executive, or you just say, hey, I want to keep progressing at my company, learn as much as possible, and just say yes. Just keep helping out your boss.
Hey, two things come to mind. The first thing that comes to mind when you say that is the phrase that I like, which is you have to learn before you earn.
Yeah, exactly. Hits the nail on the head. I should have said that.
Yeah. And the second
Yeah,
thing,
that's exactly right.
it's really interesting. I met somebody for a coffee this morning, one of my clients. In the coffee shop, they were selling secondhand books, and I picked one up, and I actually bought it. And it was a book by Danny Wallace, and I think the title of the book was "Say Yes More." So,
Yeah.
so it's interesting that you mentioned that about saying yes more, and that's the book that I bought this morning. So it's amazing how
Well,
these.
there we go, Simon. There, yeah, full circle. But yeah, I just think that's what I would say. Um, and I learned that pretty well when I took my first job. Just say yes. You're gonna grind through quite a tough period being a junior banker, but you learn a lot, and that's the most important thing. Just keep learning. And it put me in a position. I mean, I set up BAMUK and I bought contracts when I was 31,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, 31, maybe 32. Now, there's plenty of things I've done wrong and I could learn from and do better, but I'd spent enough time saying yes, really committing to working hard and learning that I was quite comfortable doing the diligence, hiring some consultants, negotiating a stock purchase agreement, and going for it. I didn't bet the house or anything, but I was quite comfortable going through that process at 31 because I'd been through it enough. I had some great mentors who taught me quite a lot, from how to think about the business strategically to how to get into the kind of technical tactics of negotiating stock purchase agreements and getting into warranties and indemnities and that kind of stuff. Um, and it would not have worked, Simon, had I not kept saying yes and just working hard.
Yeah, like it. Well, Troy, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today and sharing more about your businesses and also your journey. So thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Simon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.